Okay, here we are. This is going to be the fast version of this video. It won't be that fast, but I'm not going to explain every little detail of every step. I'm going to assume some skill level on the viewer. So here we go. We've had the cube selected. Let's hit X to delete. Let's hit Shift A to add a mesh plane. I want to scale this up by 10, so let's hit S10. We have to left click to let that go. All right, if we hit Tab, we can go into edit mode. We can hit right click, subdivide. We'll open this box down here, number of cuts, hit backspace, 60, and then enter, of course. We can tab back into object mode. Let's give this plane a modifier. So let's click over here, add modifier. We're going to add a displace modifier. I'm going to come down here to the bottom, click this, new material. Right here where it says type image or movie, let's click that. Let's pick clouds. We'll see that we get that. Okay, before we go any further, I need to adjust my camera, so I'm going to left click it. I'm going to hit 7 to go into the top view, and I'm going to pop on my gizmo. Let's click it over here, bring it to the middle, and a little bit down here. We're going to be looking down the y-axis. So I'm going to cancel the rotation of the camera. So let's hit Alt-R. It looks straight down. Now we'll rotate on the X by 90. So RX90, left click to end that. I'm going to bring the camera down just a little bit. Got a super sensitive mouse here. And then let's look through the camera by hitting the 0. All right, that looks pretty fair for now. I'm going to come backwards by hitting GZZ. And then we'll go like that. Okay, let's select the ground. We'll come over here to the modifiers tab, click the wrench. Under strength, I'm going to hold down the shift key and left click until the ground comes down to something a little more mellow. I'm also going to reselect my camera by hitting this rectangular box. We're going to hit GZ to come down. Excellent. Okay, cool, that looks pretty good. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier by selecting the ground, add modifier, subdivision surface. I'm going to leave it at viewport 1. I am, however, in object mode, going to right click and shade smooth. All right, cool, that looks pretty good. Let's add a material. I'm going to come right up here to the right hand side of options, left click and drag a new window. We're going to set this to a shader editor. I'm going to get rid of the N menu by hitting the N key. Let's give this a new material. If we name it, backspace, GROUND, enter. All right, so this is the material for ground. We have the principled shader here. All right, so all I'm going to really do is we're going to add a little bit of ambient occlusion. So we'll hit Shift A, input ambient occlusion. Might have to back out just a little bit. In between here, we're going to hit a color ramp, Shift A, converter, color ramp. Let's go color to factor, color to base color. Okay, over here in our control panel, this top one, the back of a camera, if we left click it, it's the EV render engine. We can kick on ambient occlusion, screen space reflections. I'm going to go into shadow, and let's hit high bit depth for now. And we'll leave everything else the same. Okay, let's add a little bit of texture to the snow as well. I'm going to come over here and hit Z. We'll go into rendered mode. This is what the scene looks like so far. Back over here in our shader editor, we'll hit Shift A. I'm going to hit a texture, noise texture, and I'll probably have to back out just to give ourselves a little more room. I want to duplicate that, Shift D. I want to hit right in between here, vector bump, Shift A, vector bump. Let's duplicate that with a Shift D. Right in between here, we need a color mix RGB, so Shift A, color mix RGB. Color to height off of these noise textures into our bump. The normal to color 1, normal to color 2. That doesn't really matter. You can put them either way you want. And let's connect that. All right, as we come in closer, let's check our scale. On this one, I'm going to go up, say 20s. The bottom one, we're going to go up into the 40s or 50s. And we can see over here, we get lots of bump. It's a little too bumpy, so let's take the strength down over here in our bump nodes. Take that one down to 0.1-ish, so, and then the other one down to, say, I don't know, 0.1 as well. All right, the snow's a little bit too shiny, so if we come over here to the principled shader, or I'm sorry, we got to go the other way. I'm putting it at about 0.7 somewhere. All right, so that looks pretty good. Let's move on to the sky. First, before we do that, though, let's adjust this light. We're going to left click. I'm going to come over here, and it's only when you click this do you get this icon here for a light bulb. Let's click it. I'm going to move it over to an area lamp. I'm going to click the power up to 1500. Okay, and then let's make the color slightly into the orangey color, or something like that. Okay, and then I'm going to back out. Let's drag this over here just a little bit, and then let's hit R to rotate it so we get a little more of a kind of a sunset. All right. Okay, cool. Let's do the sky. I'm going to open up this editor over here if I can ever get the arrows to show. We're going to click this and, oh, sorry, we're already in an editor, the editor we want. We're going to click this one and pick World. Now we get the World editors, or World Editor. All right, so we're going to add some clouds real quick. So we're going to hit Shift-A, Texture. We're going to hit a Noise Texture. In between, we're going to go with a Color Ramp. So we're going to hit Shift-A, Converter, Color Ramp. Color to Factor, Color to Color. And we'll see we get this unusual gray-white blend for the sky, for the world. Let's move this over in. We'll see we get some contrast between the white and black. This right here is the color picker. Let's left click it. Let's pull our value slider up. I'm going to make this up into the blues. Sort of what I think a sky blue would look like. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to bring the white slider over so we get a little more contrast. Let's get back in here to the noise texture. I'm going to take the scale up just a bit. Say 12 or so. Detail, we're going to kick to 16. That'll give us some better detail. I'm not going to mess with distortion. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now let's add a gradient. I'm going to need to mix, so I'm going to move this over. So we'll hit Shift-A, Color, Mix RGB. I'm going to just drop it on the line. It'll install for us. I'm going to Shift-A. In this case, we're going to add a texture, Gradient Texture. Shift-A, Converter, Color Ramp. We're going to go Color to Factor, Color to Color 2. We're going to mix that in. Now we can see on the left here we do get the gradient. It's kind of pointed the wrong way. So I'm going to close this just a little bit more so we can see it. All right, so what we're going to do now is I need to turn that. So I'm going to grab this one gradient texture. We're going to hit Control T using the Node Wrangler. I'm going to come right down here under rotation Y. We're going to, instead of 0, we're going to click it. We're going to hit backspace. We're going to hit -90, enter. And right up here for location on the X, we're going to click it. We're going to backspace. And we're going to hit 0.08, enter. Okay, so that looks pretty good. All right, now we're going to duplicate this group of nodes and put it up on top here. So I have to hit Alt-A first, C to select everything, all those nodes, Shift-D to duplicate them, bring them up to the top. And then we're going to connect this set of nodes, this new duplicate, into the factor of this Mix RGB. Okay, and we don't see anything really too much at first, but if we come back up here and we change this Y on the rotation, click it, backspace, and we just push in 90, enter. So positive 90. This other one we're going to click, we're going to backspace, we're going to hit 0.5, enter. Okay, and then we got to come over here to our color ramp, and when we shift these around, we'll see we get a kind of a gradient color here the more we add in here. So something like that is kind of what I'm looking for. I can come down to the bottom here, And let's change this color to a, first off, let's move it around and see what it does. Let's bring it over here roughly. Let's click this, and let's make this a little bit more of a sunset color. All right, cool. That looks pretty good. I'm going to stick with that as the sky. And by the way, I'm trying not to explain things too much. You can catch the long version of this, which has most things overly described, in my opinion, but it's for new users. So if you need more explanation, hit that one. Real quick, I'm going to pop out of here and just show that we've made an entire world texture here. If we look up, we see the sky. If we look down, we see the pink. So that's kind of a cool technique. I'm going to hit 0 to go back into my regular camera view. All right, we're ready right now to model this snowball. I'm going to pull this window shut. I'm not going to pull it all the way closed. I'm just going to pull it over here to the side. All right, so I'm going to hit Alt-A to deselect everything. Shift-A, we're going to add a mesh UV sphere. I don't need this window open, so we'll close it. I'm going to right-click and hit Shade Smooth. Let's pick this up just a little bit, and then I'm going to scale it down. We still want it to kind of sink into the snow a little bit, so somewhere in there. All right, let's give this a texture real quick before we duplicate it. I have to go back up here to the Object settings, and then we'll hit New to give it a new texture. Let's find our nodes. We're going to do the same material we did for the snow on the ground, so Shift-A, Input, Ambient Occlusion, Shift-A, Converter, Color Ramp. I'm going to get these a little further apart so they'll connect. And then color to base color. All right. And we can see we got a little bit of ambient occlusion there if I look in there. That's because we've turned on the settings in the Eevee render engine. Okay, cool. So let's give it a little more texture the way we did the other way. So Shift-A, Texture, Noise Texture, Shift-D, and then we're going to hit Shift-A. This time Vector, Bump, Shift-D, then we're going to hit Shift-A, add a color, Mix RGB. All right, if we hit color to height, and then normal to color 1, normal to color 2. Again, that doesn't really matter. You can put it in either one. They can be in different orders. There we go. All right, and now we have a little bit of bump on our snowball. I'm going to zoom in just a little closer so we can see what's going on. All right, so the strength is too high, and then as well, the scale on both are the same. So let's change the scale around. This one up, say 12 or so. Let's take this other one up into 40s or 50s, somewhere around there. All right, it's not too important. And then let's take the strength down on both of these. Take this maybe down in the 0.1 zone, and let's take this one down, maybe say 0.2-ish. That looks pretty fair. Of course, you're in control of that, so you make it however you like. All right, let's duplicate these. So let's hit Shift-D, and then I'm going to use this gizmo to pull it straight up on the Z. I'm going to scale it down, and then Shift-D, and let's drag that up. And then again, you're the artist here, so scale is up to you. I'm going to just push this down in there. All right, that looks pretty good. That's our snowman for now. So I'm going to close this up. And then I'm going to close this up quite a ways, actually, because the next part we're going to model is the hat. So let's get into it. I'm going to hit Alt-A. Let's hit Shift-A to add a mesh, a circle. I'm going to use the gizmo to pull it up to the top here. I'm going to hit my middle mouse button to break the camera view. And then I'm going to zoom in kind of from the top, somewhere where I can see this. Now, it's way easier to hit the Z key and go into solid view for this process. I'm going to hit the Tab key to go into edit mode. Let's scale that down. Scale. We're making the brim of the hat, so whatever you think the brim of the hat would be. I'm going to zoom in here. All right, I'm going to extrude and scale these so it looks like this, E, S. I still want to be able to see them. I don't want them to go into the head because some of the snowball might peek out of the hat. All right, let's hit EZ to bring that up. Have to back out just a little bit. EZ. Oh. Control Z, and that's not the right way to do it. Let's get our gizmo back, or you can hit GZ to bring it up. All right. Let's hit ES to scale in. ES, and then let's do it again. ES, and then let's hit the F key to fill that in. F for fill. All All right, let's put in, well, let's do the bottom of the hat thickness first. So I'm going to hit Alt, left click on this line of vertices. We'll hit EZ, bring it down just a little bit. Use your middle mouse wheel to kind of tuck under here to look at it. Let's hit ES to drag that in. And it doesn't matter if this goes into the head on this one. All right, let's put a hat band on. We're going to hit Control R to make a new edge loop. I'm going to left click, drag that down to wherever I think the hat band would be. I'm going to come in a little closer. That looks pretty good. I'm going to hit number 3 on the top of my keyboard to go into face select mode. I'm going to Alt left click these, and then let's hit SZ to bring this down just a little bit. If we think it needs to be, mine looks a little thick. So anyways, all right, so let's go with that, and then let's hit ES to extrude out, and then EZ again. Sorry, not EZ. SZ. Bring that in. I'm going to Control Z twice because I have to do that again. ES to bring that out, and then SZ. Sorry, moving a little too fast there. All right, all we did was scale the front faces of this hat band down, and we pulled it out and gave it a little bit of thickness. So if that was confusing, sorry about that. All right, so let's move on. Let's add a subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to hit A to select everything. Click the wrench, add modifier, subdivision surface modifier, and we're going to leave it at viewport 1. I'm going to hit Alt A to deselect everything. Control R to make an edge loop, and let's drag it up to the top of the house to bring back some of this form. I'm going to get in here close so we can see what we're doing. All right, we just added this loop. I'm going to add another one on the inside ring here. So Control R, and then let's pull that out towards the hat. That'll give us a little bit of roundness, but also take back some of our shape. I'm going to come down here to the bottom. We're going to Control R to make another edge loop. I have to left click it to move it. I'm going to pull it all the way down towards the hat band. And when I get kind of close, somewhere in there, let's left click. I need 2 on the hat band. Let's get in close. Control R, left click, and then on this one, I'm going to left click to leave them where they are. I'm going to hit SZ to scale these apart, SZ, and we'll bring those right up towards the top there. I need another edge loop right here, Control R on the hat band, or a hat brim, and let's bring that in a little bit closer. I need another one here to reclaim some of this edge. Control R, left click, and let's drag that out. I want to come in so I can see the front faces of the edge of the brim of the hat, which is right here, one of these big rectangles. If I hover right in there, Control R, I have to move over here to make it go the right way. Scroll wheel once to get 2 loops. Left click to leave them there. SZ to scale those up just a little bit to make them go up and down closer to the edges to retake that edge. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to hit Tab to go into object mode, right click to shade smooth. That'll smooth that hat up a bit. I'm going to reopen this other panel we have over here, if I can. These things are kind of sensitive. All right, so this object needs a new material, and so let's look around for it. And we can drag this over here, middle mouse wheel down, click there, backspace, let's name it hat. Enter. All right, so we have our hat now. I'm not going to add any ambient occlusion to it because I'm going to go with the black hat. You can make it whatever color you like. Let's just make the color black. Click, and then let's just bring the value slider all the way, almost all the way down into the black zone. Over here, if we hit Z, rendered, we can see what's going on. All right, I'm going to add some texture, Shift A. I'm going to add a texture. We're going to add a noise texture. And then I'm going to hit Shift A. I only need a vector bump this time, only one. Color to height, normal to normal. Okay, and then right here where it says scale, I'm going to left click it, backspace, and put in 500. 500, enter. Okay, all right, and then that looks pretty good. All right, so now what we need to do is give the hat band a material. So I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to hit Z to go into solid mode. It's easier to grab these things, solid view, I should say. Okay, and so now what we need to do is hit Alt A to make sure nothing is selected. No geometry can be selected for this. I'm going to come down to the bottom here into the material tab, and it says hat. That's what we've been working on. I'm going to hit the plus sign right here to add a new material. Let's name that material. Backspace, B-A-N-D, enter, and now we can make the material for the band. Then we have to come over here and select what we want to be there. I'm going to hit 3 on my keyboard to get face select mode. I'm going to hit Alt and left click to get that entire loop. And I have to hold down Shift and Alt and left click to get these other loops. Just grab these as we can, and we've got them all. Now we can make sure that band is selected. We can come right over here where it says assign and click that. Now if we hit Z to go back into rendered mode, we'll see that we have a white hat band. I'm going to hit Tab to go into object mode where we can see it a little better. Let's bring it up a little closer, and let's add a little bit of texture to it. So I'm going to hit Shift A, texture. We're going to go with a magic texture. Shift A. We're going to add in a vector bump. This is going to be color to height. And then we're just going to go normal to normal straight in there. Okay, you can see what it does there. I personally think that the scale is too big, so I'm going to bring it way up. I'll probably put it up in the 160, 170 zone. Something like that. Kind of looks like a fabric band. I think that looks okay. I'm going to turn down the strength just slightly. All right, and then we might want to make it a little shinier. Who knows? It's up to you. Okay, cool. So we've got a cool hat. All right, let's grab this and drag this over again. Let's move on to the eyes. So I'm going to hit Alt-A, Shift-A, Mesh, Icosphere. I'm going to open its context panel here, and we're going to take the subdivisions down to 1. I'm going to real quickly give the Icosphere a material. So let's hit New. Let's make the base color black. Something like so. And then let's add in some texture. Shift A, texture. I'm going to go with noise again. It's probably my most used one. And then Shift A, vector bump. And then we can take color to height, normal to normal, as per usual. All right, I'm going to take the scale up a decent amount, something like that. And then maybe we'll take the strength down just a little. And then let's take the roughness quite a bit up. Let's take it almost all the way up. Okay, I'm going to go into front mode front view, sorry about that, by hitting the 1 key on my numpad. I'm going to left click the camera and hit the H key to hide it. I'm going to come in a little closer on my front view. I'm going to select the icosphere. Let's scale it down. Let's hit GZ to pick it up. And then we need to scale it some more, obviously. Okay, so if I turn slightly, I can see that it has to come out on the Y, so GY. Let's go back into front mode by hitting the 1 on the numpad. Let's bring this over and pop this up as an eye. I'm going to scale it down slightly. I'm going to hit Shift D, left click, and then I'm just drag it right over here like so. Rotate on the Y, RY, and then rotate on the Z, RZ. That'll make those eyes look a little different. I'm going to select this other eye too, and then we'll have to look, we probably have to push it into the head a little. Let's do that. Okay, something like that. I'm going to grab this eye, Shift D, left click. I'm going to use the gizmo, position it in the middle here. GY to get it to come out more. Something like so. And then if I hit 1 on my keyboard, I can go back, or on my numpad, I'm sorry, we can go back into front view. So GY, just to bring that out just a little bit. And then Shift D, left click, and I'm going to drag it down using the gizmo. Let's bring this over. Let's scale it down just a little bit. And in fact, I'm going to get rid of this one, X, because we're actually going to make a caret for it. So that was a wasted step. All right, let's drag this in here a little bit. Let's scale it down a little more. 1 on the numpad. Let's drag it up a little. And then Shift D. I'm going to bring this over to the other side. And then Shift D. Let's bring this over to the middle here. Let's bring it down. And then we'll have to hit GY to bring it out. I'm just going to turn to the side here. It's a lot easier. GY. Let's grab that and bring that out. And then Shift D, left click, and then I'm going to drag it over here. Let's go back into front mode on the one on the numpad, and that looks pretty fair. Looks like a pretty good smile, so we'll go with that. I'm gonna hit Alt A to deselect, Shift A. We're gonna add a mesh cylinder. Now we're gonna add the caret. I'm gonna come down here where it says cap fill type. Let's hit nothing, and then we can close that window up. I'm gonna back out here just a little bit, and in fact, let's close this window down. I should have been in the bigger view the whole time. Okay, so let's hit RX90, and then let's scale. Oh, I didn't give myself enough room to scale. If you watch the long version, you'll hear me harping on that the entire time. All right, let's come in here and get kind of close. I'm going to scale again, just a little bit smaller. Let's hit SY to scale on the Y to make it longer. I'm going to hit Tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to hit Control R to make my first edge loop. Let's drag it back somewhere, say about here, and then let's scale. Hit another one here, Control R. Let's bring it about right here. Let's scale. Just a little bit. You can probably see where I'm going with this. Let's scale. I'm going to hit number 1 on my keyboard, and let's hit Alt, left click in between some of these vertices to get the one on the end. Let's scale this one down. I'm going to get right in here for this part. Let's take this down just a little further, and we'll hit F to fill that. I'm going to hit Alt right here, and then let's scale that as well. While we're here, we can see what's going on. Let's grab this one with an Alt, left click. Let's scale it down. Alt, left click. And you'll just have to kind of mess with this to get it to look right. Scale down-ish, something like that. And then probably one more back up here. Scale, something like that. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to move this slightly over just a bit. Maybe this one also with an Alt, left click to select the entire loop. Let's move it up a little bit, maybe this way. That'll make it look not too perfect. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's actually get that and scale that down just a little bit more. Let's do all these, sorry. Sorry, they're just looking a little rough, so let's just grab them. Scale, something like that. Okay, so let's hit A to grab all of them, and I'm going to use the gizmo this time. And let's just move it into his face, the snowman's face, and place it where we think it can go. It's probably a little big, so I'm going to scale. And that looks halfway okay. Maybe a little bit more scaling. And then we'll have to move it into the snowman. All right, I'm going to hit Tab to go into object mode. Let's move this guy over, and let's get our shader editor back. Let's grab it just like so. I'm going to get right in here. I'm going to right click and shade smooth. Remember, you have to be in object mode for that. Let's add a new material. There it is. Base color, let's hit it to orange. Somewhere in the cool orange color. Let's hit Shift A. Texture, I'm going to go with a wave texture. And let's hit Shift A. Vector, bump. Let's click this into the height, and then normal to normal, as you know. I'm going to click on this wave texture, and then we're going to hit Control T and use our node wrangler again. Hopefully you have that add-on activated. Okay, so I'm going to grab these. I'm going to go on the Z a bit, and then I think it's the Y to bring it closer together like so. And then the Z is going to be up in the, I don't know, 46-ish on the Z and rotation, and 52-ish looks pretty good on rotation as well. All right, so let's come back over, and I'm going to leave the scale about that big. I'm going to hit the distortion just a little bit. Detail, let's kick that up a bit. And then I'm going to come over here to the strength, and let's turn the strength down just a bit. We just need to see barely any lines there. That looks halfway decent. That's about as far as I'm going to go with that. One more thing, I'm going to grab one of these eyes. I'm going to go into front view on my numpad by hitting the 1 key. Let's hit Shift D and left click, and let's just drag this down. And we'll drag it over to the center, and then let's go to the side and drag it out to where we can see it. Let's hit Shift D. Let's bring another one out. And then finally Shift D again, left click, and drag it down, and just move it in. However you want, G, Y, whatever you like. Let's hit 1 on the numpad to go into front view. And those look pretty good. I'm going to turn my gizmo off real quick and just select them all. And then let's hit GZ just to bring them all up a little bit, because that looks a little better. And then this top one needs to come in, which is GY. Let's bring that in just a little bit. And this one here, maybe too, GY. All right, cool. So we've got our snowman basically kind of made. He's looking pretty good. So I'm going to hit Alt-A. Let's make some arms. Shift-A. Let's go Mesh, Cube. We don't need to change anything about this cube, so let's just use it. S to scale. I'm going to turn my gizmo back on. I find it a lot quicker to just use my gizmo sometimes. So there we go. We want to bring this in about where the arm would start. Let's scale it. And then it's important that the origin point, this little point right in the middle here, is kind of in maybe a little bit, or yeah, right inside just a little bit. Something like that. All right, and then let's scale this cube just a little bit more. I'm going to hit Z to go into solid mode. That'll make this easier to model. Tab to go into edit mode, and 3 on the keyboard in order to go into face select mode. Now, the gizmo is going to be on my way again, so let's just turn it off. I'm going to select that front face there. We know that the left and right is the X, so let's hit EX. Let's shut this down before we don't need the material here. Let's get in close. All right, so I'm going to scale that down. And by the way, I just dragged that out about to where an elbow would be, I think. Let's hit GZ just to make him go down just a little bit. And then let's go out to where we think a wrist would go. So EX, bring that out. Something like that. Scale it down. All right, cool. And then we're going to come out with, we're just going to have 2 fingers like a fork stick. So let's go EX, bring that out. We're going to scale it. And then GZ to bring that down. EX to bring that out. S to scale it. And then GZ to bring it kind of up a little bit. I'm going to come right in this area right here. And we need another edge loop right here. So we're going to make a box. Control R, left click to drag it into place. Leave it something like that. That kicked us into edge mode. We want to be in face mode. Let's select that top face. Let's just hit E. It'll extrude out. Let's scale. And let's GX to bring it off over here. I'm going to rotate it on the Y. RY. And then let's EX again to bring it out. I'm going to take it slightly longer than the other finger. Let's go scale to bring it down. Now we have a kind of a cool stick-like thing. I'm going to go back into edge mode, and let's get this entire edge where the elbow is, and by hitting Alt, left click to select the entire thing. Let's hit GZ to bring it down, and maybe GY to bring it back. GY to take it back just a little bit. Okay, cool. All right, so let's hit Tab, and let's add a modifier to this. I'm going to add it by hitting the wrench. We're going to add a modifier, subdivision surface. This time we're going to go viewport 2. Let's hit Tab to go into edit mode. Let's recover some of this form right up here in the upper arm. Control R, left click, and bring it down towards the elbow. Not too close. We don't want to sharpen it up too much. Control R, right click. Let's bring another one. We're going to go up here towards the wrist. Control R, bring it here. We need one right here in this first part of the finger. Control R, bring it towards the fork. Same thing with this one. Control R, left click. Let's drag that in. Let's get in here just a little closer. All right, and we can see how that sub D bends this pretty good. Let's get some of that back by hitting Control R here. Left click. Let's drag that over. Same right here. Control R, left click. Let's drag that right there. Control R, left click. We'll bring that right like that. That looks pretty good. If you want, you can go out to the front of the fingers, Control R, and get a little bit of the stick back so it's not so pointy. Something like that. That looks pretty good. All right, let's hit Tab to go into object mode. We'll right click to shade smooth. And then we're going to duplicate this arm by hitting Shift D. Turns white so we know we did it. Left click, and then I'm going to hit RZ180, and I have to push enter. And that'll give it me on the other arm. Oh, I deselected it by selecting the ground somehow. All right, so let's move it along the X. GX. We'll bring it out like so. Now these arms look pretty huge, so I'm going to scale this one down quite a bit. Okay, and same with this one here. Let's scale it down just a little bit. Those are kind of big. Maybe even a little more. And they don't have to be exact. And right now we're going to make this one look different than the other one by quite a bit. So we'll hit Tab, go into edit mode. I'm going to go into face mode and do it however you like. Let's hit Alt, left click, and then Shift and Alt and left click to get those. Now we have to move those back along the Y. So GY, we'll move those back just a little bit. And it looks like it twisted some stuff up just a little bit. So let's go into edge mode, left click to get that loop, and then GY to bring that just a little bit more forward again. We don't want that to be too crooked. All right. And then right here, we're going to add a stick coming out. So let's hit Control R. Let's roll left click, bring that over here somewhere. Another one here, Control R, like click, bring that there. Let's bring this in. And then let's hit Tab, or I'm sorry, face select mode. Click that face. And let's, extrude on the Z. EZ, let's bring it up. Let's GX to move it along on the X. Let's come in. Whoop. And this scroll wheel I have is pretty sensitive. All right, let's scroll that in. Got a cool new gaming mouse. So if you watch the extended version, you'll get to hear all about it multiple times. So you got that to look forward to if you've got nothing better to do. All right, Control R, left click. Let's bring this down. Something like that. And that looks pretty good. So that gives us a fork, another finger, makes that arm look different than the other one. All right, that looks pretty good. So let's hit Tab to go into object mode. I'm going to open up my panel here, and let's give this a new material. New. And, I'm really not liking how Blender is making things disappear like that. Again, something else you can hear me talk about slightly in my other long version. All right, so let's name it. Let's name it Wood. And this will be our fake wood material. We're just going to give it a cheesy wood material. I'm going to get in close here so we can see it. We'll hit Z to go into rendered. And yeah, like I said, my mouse is so sensitive. I only have to even just move it and it'll roll my scroll wheel. I should probably use a different mouse for these tutorials. All right, cool. So let's start giving it some materials here. How about that? Shift A. I'm going to use a converter color ramp. I'm just going to plug that right in here. I'm going to make the black one some kind of brown by going into the orange colors and hitting it. This is going to be dark brown. The white one, let's click it. Let's make it a different color brown, but a little bit lighter. And then let's add one right in the middle. Let's move it over here and make it a little bit darker. All right, so there's our colors. We're just mixing those for right now. So let's hit Shift A, texture, and I'm going to use the wave texture again. Shift A. Let's use a vector bump. Color. In fact, I'm going to move this out of the way just a second. And let's add in a Shift A converter color ramp. Color to factor, color to height. You can see how those are hooked up. Okay, as I get in closer here, you can see nothing's happening because I haven't hooked up the normal yet. Let's hook that up. All right, cool. So as we get in closer here, we can see that we've got kind of a cool wood texture going. Let's hit our scale. I'm going to scale that up a bit, maybe late teens, 17, 18 somewhere. Distortion, let's kick that distortion up quite a bit. And then detail, let's take the detail all the way up to 16. That looks pretty good. And I'm liking that. So I'm going to back out. We put this color ramp in. I explain it more in the other tutorial, the longer version, but you can get different looks by moving these sliders around. So that's why we put those in. If you're following this video at the speed at which it's being put down, then you probably already know all that. All right, cool. So let's go with our strength. Let's take our strength down just a little bit, say 0.5. All right, and then our roughness. I'm going to kick the roughness up just a little bit. All right, cool. And then let's open our material tab here. And I'm going to grab this arm, left click, and then shift left click this one so it's the active object. And then we'll hit this little drop down thing here and copy that material over to the other one. All right, cool. So we've got a pretty fun looking snowman here. A couple things I can see I'd like to do real quick is probably move around some of these. So I'm going to hit S, X, oh, sorry, not S, but G, X. Let's move that over just a little bit. Same with this one, G, X. Let's get that in there. Let's hit Z into solid mode. And let's select that one. And that one. All right, Z, let's go into, actually into wireframe. Let's grab that one and that one. All right, and then Z to go back into solid. And then let's move those on the Y, GY. Let's drag those out just a little bit so we can see them. All right, and then this one and this one, let's just hit S, X, and move those kind of closer together. All right, Z back into rendered. All right, cool. That looks a little better. My snowman's mouth isn't so wide. All right, cool.